on the order of about $300 million based on their budgets, based on what the numbers they have put out publicly. Some of those may not come to pass, but I'm working with the numbers they've put out thus far.
Peter Stone, I want to ask you about the little-known Iowa group, the American Future Fund. This is an ad paid for by the organization attacking Democratic Congressman Bruce Braley of Iowa.
For centuries, Muslims built mosques where they won military victories. Now they want to build a mosque at Ground Zero, where Islamic terrorists killed 3,000 Americans. It's like the Japanese building at Pearl Harbor. The Muslim cleric building the mosque believes America was partly responsible for 9/11 and is raising millions overseas from secret donors. But incredibly, Bruce Braley supports building a mosque at Ground Zero. Tell Braley what you think.
What is this Iowa group, American Future Fund?
This Iowa group is one of the more secretive ones that's out there this year. It too has increased its presence significantly. It spent roughly $1 million early in the year to help elect Scott Brown in Massachusetts. The leader of the founder of the group, Nick Ryan, told me that they raised and spent roughly $8 million in 2008 on issue ads to help Republicans. This year, he told me they're going to roughly triple that to as much as $25 million. We don't know where the money's coming from. This is another one that can accept anonymous donations. Ryan said their money's from all over the country. Sources have told me they do have some million-dollar donors, but who they are, we don't know. The ad they ran in Iowa, the one you just played, is particularly noteworthy because it was the handiwork of Larry McCarthy, who has done a lot of their ads. Larry McCarthy has a long history in negative advertising and, in fact, was one of the key architects of the infamous ad, the Willie Horton ad that ran in the 1988 presidential campaign to tar Michael Dukakis. A lot of the American Future Fund ads are particularly negative, and you know, there are others who are doing similar things on the Republican side and some on the Democratic side. But his ads rather stand out in their, you know, hard-hitting negative quality.
What about the Kochs? What about David Koch, speaking of billionaires, who has poured millions into the Tea Party? Excellent piece by Jane Mayer in The New Yorker really lays out this story. Peter Stone.
Well, the Kochs, of course, are you know, the owners of the nation's, I believe, second largest privately held company, Koch Industries of Wichita, Kansas, a giant energy firm that has had a lot of run-ins with regulators over the years on many different fronts. The Kochs have been around for a couple decades, funding a network of conservative institutions in Washington and elsewhere, think tanks and other operations. They were the money behind a very powerful group in the 1990s called Citizens for a Sound Economy, that worked very closely with the Republican leadership in the House and the Senate, particularly in the House in those days. Citizens United began to disintegrate in the late 90s, or around the time the Bush administration came in. And there were a couple of successor organizations that sprang up soon afterwards. The most recent iteration of this is Americans for Prosperity, which is the key group in Washington that's been getting Koch money. They say they're going to spend about $45 million this year on the elections. And they, too, have been running a lot of ads. Unlike the bulk of the ads that other groups have run, theirs started focusing on the House a little earlier. Other groups have focused much more on the Senate, but are moving to the House now, started moving to the House as well. And the Kochs have you know, helped to seed the Tea Party movement. They put up some of the money. We don't know just how much has gone to the Tea Party movement. I would guess, you know, a few million, but that's a very, very rough guess. Could be a little more, could be a little less. But Americans for Prosperity is their principal advocacy group in Washington, and they have said they're looking at $45 million. They're not coordinating quite as much from what I understand with the other groups, but there is, there's obviously some contact, some exchange of information. I think all of these groups are trying to ensure that Republicans, play this game as smart as they can this year, or as efficient as they can be, and don't waste their money. Former Senator Coleman said to me about the American Action Network that donors don't like duplication. And so they're trying to be as clever as they can. And Americans for Prosperity is certainly a key part of this effort.
Well, we'll continue to follow, of course, the money trail, money in politics, and we'll speak with you again soon. Peter Stone, thanks so much for your great reporting over the decades, now at the Center for Public Integrity.